scandal.
Okay.
More than 1 million young people are expected
So
to
let me
yeah.
know if it has gone
that takes
live
place
yet.
over several days. Temperatures are forecast to hit 95 degrees Fahrenheit or higher
Okay,
by the
I should be
weekend's
live
final
now.
papal mass. Francis is expected to meet privately with abuse survivors. Portuguese
Okay.
bishops were criticized for their initial response after an independent commission reported in February that nearly 5,000 boys and girls were
Okay. So how you doing,
since 1950.
Pastor
I'm Charles
Vicky?
Ledesma.
First Lady Jill Biden says
Listen, my head is spinning with all of this news that is
jobs.
coming out. So much is going on right now.
Every day. Is it not? Oh, I mean, I love it. I love
WCPT Willow
it.
Springs and streaming worldwide.
Yes,
You know, I really do.
20.com.
Because you know what? People
We
thought
are
that we were
Chicago's
crazy for the longest time. I
Progressive
was
Talk,
talking to
where
Dwight
facts
about that. And you know, and the fact
WCPT
is,
820 weather update.
this is what we
From the
know.
Weatherology Weather
We've
Center,
known this
I'm
for a
meteorologist
long
Paul
time.
Frobley. Sunshine
this
mixed
is how we live.
Miss
This
Jackson,
is
so
how
sorry.
we
I've not
live.
seen the Facebook yet.
It
winds
should be
8 to
up
15 miles
now.
per hour. Lows dip down to about 67 tonight. Partly cloudy skies.
Because it
Partly
says
cloudy
it's
skies
live.
again tomorrow. Highs around 86. Temperatures near average Friday and Saturday with
Okay.
highs from the low 80s to the mid 80s. Another look at
Hey,
the short
Paula,
range.
Yep,
do
I
me
see
a
it.
favor.
Top
If you
out
can
at
go over
86
to
today.
YouTube on the
That's
Santita
your
Jackson
latest
Show YouTube
Chicago
channel.
weather
How you doing,
update.
sweetie?
Right now, 69.
If you don't have final expense
Are we up
insurance,
yet?
this message is for you.
Yes, we are.
Okay,
Life
very
Care
good.
provides valuable
Okay,
whole
Pastor
life
Johnson,
insurance
can
to
you
help
speak
cover final
so that I
expenses,
can make sure that
medical
we have you on
bills,
the right
burial
channel?
costs, and unpaid debt of final expenses.
Sure. Good morning. It is good for us to be here together again,
Anyone between the ages of
sharing information, informing us so that we can know what our marching orders are for the day.
Hello.
All right. We're sounding good.
Okay, very good. You know, and I'm not going to lead with
We
Trump today.
expect our
I'm going to lead
information
with
in real
Niger.
time. U.S. Med carries
Okay.
To that
continuous
end, because
glucose
you know, I
monitors,
think that
which
now
provide
that we're
real-time
seeing
readings of
Africa
blood
figure so
glucose levels.
prominently
U.S.
in
Med is
their
an
news
approved
cycle. I mean,
provider
now
for Medicare
Africa
and over
is beginning to
500
figure
private
prominently,
insurers.
and our
Call
news cycle, like Europe is, which is interesting. It lets you know, I mean, and with AFRICOM being established as a beachhead militarily, which is something that leadership, black leadership in Africa pushed against until they killed Gaddafi. Gaddafi was the leader of that. No, we don't need you. Because America's really been the leader for Europe, has been the muscle man, if you will, in colonialism
and
over
other
the
blind
past
people by
100
making a
years. Right?
taxable
So he
donation
said,
of
no,
your
we don't
used
need you.
car
We need to get our
or
business
almost
together,
anything with wheels
and we
to the
killed
National
it.
Federation
So,
of the Blind. Your donation will help ensure a
and that's
brighter
so we
future
could
for
also
blind
seize his
children and
gold,
adults.
et cetera, et
Just call
cetera. That having been said,
855-659-9314.
it's important for us to know why we're now talking about Kenya. It's beyond
855-659-9314.
President
Or
Obama.
visit
We need to know why
carshelpingtheblind.org. That's
we're looking at Nigeria. We need to know
carshelpingtheblind.org.
what are
We
the
will
resources.
arrange to have
You know,
the donated vehicle
Firestone
picked up
has
and
to be in
provide you
Africa,
with a
otherwise they go out of
tax-deductible
business.
receipt.
That's where they get their
And if you
rubber.
know someone who
From
is
next to
blind that can use our help,
France is like,
email
look, if
NFB
you all don't get
at
things together,
NFB.
but the African nations are saying, if you come in here, we're going to have a problem. So
We are live in
if you,
3 minutes.
thank you. So if you talk about,
chances are it came from
hey
a
everybody,
puppy mill,
hi Morning
a
Star.
breeding
So if you
facility
take,
that forces
I'm talking about
caged,
some of what we're going to talk about
neglected, and
today.
often sick
So
dogs
if we
to churn
talk
out
about
puppy after puppy to
Niger,
be sold for
if you talk
profit.
about Ukraine being
Meanwhile,
the breadbasket
millions
for
of
the world, which
wonderful,
it
healthy
is,
pets end
and
up
you
in
talk
animal
about that
shelters.
having the
This
potential for
leads to the
worldwide
killing of more
conflict.
than 9,000
Any place in
by
Africa
the
is
end
the
of
potential
today.
for
But with
worldwide
one simple
conflict
choice,
because
you can help. Just
we
by
depend
deciding
upon
to
these
adopt
African
instead
nations
of purchase
for
your next pet.
to give us the
Shelters are
resources that
full
we
of
call our
amazing
cell
pets
phones,
looking for a
our
home. When you
TVs,
adopt
our
your new
cell
best friend,
Yes.
not only are
That
you
all comes
saving
from
a
there.
life, you're taking a
We're
stand
also going to be
against
talking about
puppy mills.
Henrietta Lacks.
When your
Henrietta
friends
Lacks,
see the
everybody.
smart
Who is
choice
she?
and
She
impact
is
you've
the
made,
31-year-old
they
mother who
adopt their
died of
next pet and
cancer.
share with 5 of their
Oh
friends,
my
who
goodness.
share with 5 more.
Many, many years
Before
ago.
long,
And she was in
thousands
the
get
colored
involved. Pet
section of the
stores stop
Johns
selling
Hopkins
dogs from puppy
Hospital.
mills, and even more lives are saved.
And her
And with
family
your help,
found out
we can save them
that her
all.
cells had been
Visit
taken from her without their
bestfriends.org/puppy
permission.
mills to learn more.
And then we looked up,
Odds are you've never heard
and
that word before.
her
But
cells
for the
never
40 people
died.
diagnosed with sarcoma
So her
every day,
cells have
it's
been
a
used
life-changing word.
in
Life-changing
everything
and devastating because
for
sarcoma
all
is
kinds of
cancer.
medicines, and her family
Sarcoma
have
is a
not
cancer of
received
bone,
any
teaching
benefits.
more prevalent
They
in
really ought to
children
own
than
the
in
company,
adults.
quite frankly.
More than
And they ought to be
6,000 people lose their
multi-billionaires
lives just
because
this
that
year
is what
each year.
that is
Treatment
what her
options for
cells have
sarcoma are
actually
limited.
generated for Big Pharma, and not just one company, for all of Big Pharma. So we're going to talk about that. And my question for Attorney C.K. Hoffler and the lawyers will be, what about the other Black people who are in the Black section of Johns Hopkins, which is one of the top research hospitals in the world, right, Pastor Johnson? Somebody know who else?
That's right.
What else happened there? Because you not only did you put Black people in that section of the hospital because of segregation. We were the group of people upon whom the experimentations were committed.
This is Ron Whittingham.
American gynecology was built on experimentations and surgeries performed without anesthetic on Black women who were enslaved.
I'm playing the long game. Teaching financial literacy to our clients
Without anesthetic, now they would numb white women.
In a dignified retirement.
Black women
investments, pensions,
suffered
401ks,
unimaginable pain.
They're all pretty complicated.
So
We
We're
make
going
sure that you
to be
understand
talking about that today.
Give us a call,
Trump's troubles are not going to go anywhere.
1090. We're Megan Financial.
We're going to talk about
and we're your
Henrietta Lacks
partners in
today.
Happy retirement.
We'll get
Or
that
visit
lesson.
us
How
at
about that,
Right.
everybody? Yeah. We've got another year and a half, 2 years to talk about Trump. And if he becomes president, it looks like he just might, because they keep lifting him up. If he becomes president, guess what, everybody? He can pardon himself next. And what will all of this have been for? If you want to make someone irrelevant, you don't mention them. Ask Jesse Jackson. People want to know, where's Reverend Ben? Because we need you to speak about this. That's all.
Stand by.
It's all good. Okay, so stand by, everybody.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
To a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Getting a little feedback, we're going to work that out. I am Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Meet my morning stars. Paula got there first this morning, y'all. She said, morning, y'all. And Betty Chestnut and Raphael Suleiman and Robert Williams and my brother Andre, my god brother here. And Ashley King down there in Memphis and Joyce Anderson, sending you all so much love. Everybody, we're going to be talking about, of course, the Trump indictment. Call me at any time because we'll be talking about that. I just said to Pastor Vicki Johnson, who's going to give us the good news in a minute. We'll be talking about that for more than a year. Can you imagine? He'll be running for president and he'll be on trial and he'll be winning too. Betcha, betcha, you betcha. Who did that sound like? Sarah? What was that? Governor, bless their heart. People fly out of your memory just that quickly. Wow, God bless her. That having been said, you betcha. It's going to be an exciting time. That's what Pastor Johnson just said. My head is swimming. I don't even know where to turn because so much of the conspiracies, if you will, have come to life. Conspiracies, remember, that is a term that came from the CIA to quell dissent. So you wouldn't talk, right? So that you won't dissent from what you're told to think. Throw that out the window. People have if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And the system does not plan to fail. Remember that. So we're going to be talking about Henrietta Lacks and Big Pharma and this Black woman who was put in Black section of one of the top research hospitals in the world. They took her cells. They didn't tell her family. Her cells, unlike most cells, did not die. And so billions upon billions of dollars have been made off of her without informing or getting consent from her family. So they had a settlement. I hope they own the company because that's what they need. That also should have been Pastor Vicki Johnson. You know, Michael Jackson was in that position with Sony. Did you know that?
Yes.
Of course you did. And so when you heard all of these stories about Michael Jackson and all of his little peccadillos, guess what? He was in a renegotiation with Sony because he sold so many records, so many Thriller records. He actually owned the company. Can you believe that? Well, they did. They didn't want that. And so we saw the fallout. Always remember that, everybody. I am Santita Jackson. I'm going to talk about Niger and why Niger is of such great concern, not just to France and Europe, but the United States and the rest of the world. So many of the resources that we need to make our cell phones, our lives go our televisions, everything, they come out of Africa and only Africa. So we'll talk about what's happening in Niger and why everyone is very, very upset about it. And they're looking for a peaceful resolution, I hope. Okay. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT, and let us talk about all these things that are going on today. Everybody, I hope to see you on Friday from 10 to 2 p.m. at the Kroc Center for Congressman Jonathan Jackson's first annual Senior Resource Fair. Free health screenings, free health advice, answers to your questions about Medicare and Medicaid, discussions with nutrition and wellness experts. Dr. Damon Arnold is going to be there. He's the former head of the Illinois Department of Public Health, and many other health officials, many other doctors, many other elected officials. You'll be able to get your questions answered, not just about health, but about all of the resources that are available to seniors. You can get more than a discount on your movie ticket as a senior, and you need to know what is available to you. Congressman Jackson is going to provide that. If you want more information, please call his office at 773-779-2400, 773-779-2400, the Kroc Center at 119th and Elizabeth from 10 to 2 on Friday. Be there. I will be there too. Everybody, let's get to some of these headlines so we can get some good news. Donald Trump was charged with plotting to overturn his 2020 election loss. What to know? The former president faces 4 charges. The 45-page indictment revealed yesterday accuses him of 3 conspiracies and lists 6 co-conspirators. It's the latest aftershock from the 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. 2 Michigan Republicans were charged over alleged vote machine tampering. The case stems from an attempt to prove the false claim that the 2020 presidential election was wrongly called for Joe Biden over Trump. A former state lawmaker and a losing candidate for state attorney general were charged yesterday with felonies involving voting machines. More charges could follow. Illegal crossings at the U.S. southern border surged last month. U.S. agents made more than 130,000 arrests along the Mexico border in July. Preliminary data shows that's over 30,000 more than in June. The U.S. suspended security cooperation with Niger after an apparent coup. Last week, military officers ousted the elected president. Since then, the U.S. has been trying to convince them to stand down. The U.S. paused its training of Nigerian soldiers. It said yesterday the U.S. has 2 military bases in Niger, with 1,000 troops deployed there for counterterrorism and other operations. And in Chicago, it's going to be a beautiful day. It's already a beautiful day. It is going to be 89 degrees, but it will be hazy. So watch that air quality, everybody. Minneapolis, St. Paul, partly cloudy. 90 degrees will be your high. Today, we're going to see Panama face off against France, Jamaica face off against Brazil, Argentina get off, have a big match against Sweden, and South Africa will take on Italy. Yesterday, the Netherlands 7, Vietnam nothing, and Portugal and the U.S. tied, and America was barely able to advance. Everybody, remember, in these soccer games, you need to score points so that you can get a higher ranking and advance to a round. It's not just about winning the game; it's about scoring points. Everybody, England 6 yesterday, China 1, Denmark 2. Haiti 0. Everybody, in Major League Baseball, the Twins 3, the Cardinals 2. Get this, everybody, the Cubs 20. What? Yeah, 20. The Cincinnati Reds 9. The Rangers 2 and the White Sox nothing. In the WNBA, the Sun 79 and the Lynx 69. And now that we've had some of that information, let us go to Pastor Vicki Johnson. How you doing today?
I am doing great, Santita. And the name you were trying to think of was Sarah Palin from Alaska.
Thank you. I was like, well, I'm looking at her with the glasses on and the husband and the kids. And oh my gosh, bless her heart. You betcha. I can see Russia from my window. I'm not mad at her, but people laugh. But we got Alaska from Russia. Okay, everybody is very, very close to Russia. So people laughed at her. But I said, she's closer to Russia than the rest of us are. We need to stop.
And you know it.
Stop crowning her. Come on, everybody. She was not that far off. Anyway, but what's on your mind today?
Well, good morning, Santita, and good morning to all of your morning stars and friends. There is good news. When traveling and walking through Midway Airport, my eyes came upon a sign that said, "If you see something, say something." This saying was borrowed from the New York Metropolitan Transit System to keep people alert and to make travels safe while in those spaces. But when I saw this sign, "If you see something, say something," my mind went immediately to Psalms 107:2, where it says, "Let the redeemed of the Lord say so." If you see another day, say something. If you see some activity in your limbs, say something. If you are clothed in your right mind, and when I was a child, I didn't understand that because minds don't wear clothes. But if your mind is functioning where you know who you are and where you are, then say something. If you see that you are surrounded by people who love and care about you, say something, not just to someone else, but say something to them. If you see injustices in your community, and there is plenty to see, then you ought to say something. And not only say something, but do something. If you see that we are making a difference, then say something. If you see someone who is in a struggle and needs help, say something. Saying something, it gives praise, it gives acknowledgement, it addresses the challenges that we are facing. Let the redeemed of the Lord and anybody else say something. It says, "Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, whom he hath redeemed from the hand of the enemy." In the NIV, it says, "Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story." Those who have been redeemed from the hand of the foe. It's time to say something. It's time to say and tell your story. This is the day. This is the time. This is the hour when you see something, you ought to say something. If you can do this, and I'm sure that you can and will, then to me, that's good news.
Say something like, "Thank you, Lord, for getting me up this morning." Just say something.
Yes.
Like, "Thank you for loving me." Somebody who's beside you or beside you in your heart or your mind, just say something. You know, sometimes just call somebody and tell them that you love them. Why don't you do that? Say something. Give us some sign that you are alive. I love you, Pastor Vicki Johnson. How and where can we worship with you?
Well, you can worship with me at Lebanon Lutheran Church, 13100 South Manistee at 9 a.m. on Sundays, and then zip over to St. Thomas Lutheran at 80th and Jeffrey Boulevard at 11:30 a.m. for 1 hour of power. We can also be seen on Facebook.
You Lutherans, get it done quickly. You know, I used to go to, you remember Aline Walker, of course. Aline was raised Lutheran, as you know, and she was the organist in her church. And boy, we'd get in and out of church really quickly enough to get over the fellowship.
That's what I'm saying. Leave there and get to the ship.
You know, because Mabel Walker, her mother, loved European classical music, and that's all she wanted to hear on Sunday morning. You know, I mean, you know, it's very interesting. We operate out of a lot of different traditions, and I think it's important for us to understand that. And I just love you, and I'm so proud of you and so excited about your ministry. And we just, we love you, Pastor Vicki Johnson.
Love you, Santita.
Thank you, Pastor Vicki. Oh, We've got Dr. See, I've known her all my life. We've got Dr. Shanina Knighton here, registered nurse and infection preventionist. And I said, just before we came on there, I said, I wanted to ask you about something that's kind of out of, perhaps you were going to talk about something else today, but I was taken surprised because I did not know that the negotiations were underway with Henrietta Lack's family to be compensated for the cervical cells that were taken without her and their knowledge more than 70 years ago. She was segregated in the Black section of Johns Hopkins Hospital, which is a hospital without peer. It is one of the most prized research facilities on earth. She was there, but in the Black section. And her cells, it turns out they did not die. And wow, talk to me. I mean, because, this is what happened to her feeds a lot of the discomfort that Black people have. And I think other marginalized communities, but we've really had to talk about it in the United States because it's happened so much here. That, we don't want to be donors, right? We might even have misgivings about going to the hospital. What makes this case so special, Dr. Knighton, from your standpoint as a nurse, as a healthcare professional?
Good morning. So the biggest thing is that her cells were used without authorized permission, without her knowledge, without her wherewithal in regards to who they were being sent to, what were being done with them. It's almost like somebody taking your DNA and saying, hey, let me use Santita's DNA and use it for science without your permission that your DNA is spreading around to others. And so that's why this was significant, because her cells had the ability to multiply rapidly at a rate that was unseen compared with scientists that was doing work on other things. As a result of that, because of their fast replication, those cells have been used in many facets of science today when we're talking about vaccine development, when we're talking about medicine, when we're talking about different modeling as it comes to being able to understand like what diseases will look like. So it's been used in quite a bit of things, and yet and still without her knowledge, she didn't get credit, she wasn't paid for it. She wasn't told about it, and it didn't happen until later on. And so believe it or not, after all of this time, like her family has been fighting for there to be some acknowledgement as well as some compensation for them, considering that we're talking about billions of dollars and possibly even trillions when we look at how large the pharmaceutical market is, has been utilizing her information to be able to influence science or another. And that could be directly or indirectly. And even if someone says to this day, like, oh, well, those cells still aren't being used in modern day, science builds on science. And so at the end of the day, a significant amount of science was built on using the information that she was able to provide by way of her body, unauthorized. And that has led to that money that has been made. That has led to discoveries that has been made. But yet and still, this is not something for which she had knowledge of and that she was paid for. Now, if today, let's say in science, you have to sign authorizations, you have a lot of things that need to occur in order for someone to even have their cells, their tissues, their blood, anything transferred. That's not something that was in place back in the day. And I'm not going to say that it wasn't something that was in place back in the day. It was just that because there was the health literacy gap, because there was a healthcare attention, we can talk about the medical appetite. We can think through about all of that and just say to ourselves that we know that it was inadequate justice that was given. Then you look at, of course, like the Tuskegee case. Then there's other things that were occurring, not necessarily at the same time, but around the same time, that again help to continue to build that skepticism as it comes to people being able to trust science.
So this was a monumental moment in order for this to happen. Sadly, it should not have taken this long for it to happen. But now that it has happened, then of course, naturally people want to know if justice has been served. And while, again, money is helpful and, you know, there is a settlement and there is an understanding about what was done wrong, it can never still undo what has been discovered as a result of what it is that she has put forth unwillingly. And it also doesn't make a difference in regards to not knowing what discoveries have been made as a result of using those cells. And it doesn't also make up for the fact that her family has had to deal with this for all of these years.
You know what it also makes me think about, and I thank you for that. I've got about a minute and a half. She was in the colored section of Johns Hopkins, one of the preeminent healthcare facilities on earth. And I wonder what happened with other people, with other Black people who were in the colored section. What other experiments were conducted upon them? It's just a thought. It's just a thought.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't blame you for thinking like that, because even still, you know, when we talk about, let's say, keeping placentas and how placentas are used. And if I'm sure people should know what a placenta is, but a placenta essentially is the afterbirth after a woman gives birth to a child. And so it's been discovered that that's been used in lotions, that's been used for cosmetic makeup, and it's something that has been disposed of prior to. But then you end up running into, let's say if you were going to hospital now, they're asking you if you want to if you want to literally purchase a way to store your own stem cells, where essentially this stuff was being stolen for free because it was just being considered afterbirth. So it's not a crazy thought, Santita, for you to have in that regard. It's the same thing that if we were to talk about abortions and what happens to that fetal tissue afterwards. Women that, let's say, might have some sort of cosmetic surgery done, what happens to that fat? Believe it or not, like, let's say if a company is trying to come up with a formulation for lotion, or if they're trying to come up with a formulation for hand sanitizer, they actually test those products on human skin conditions. And so they do purchase those skins from that third vendor. And so there is a middleman for that. And that's not something that I'm making up. That's not conspiracy. That's just honestly what has been happening in science. It's just that people are not aware that these things are happening.
Well, you know, one day we're going to have to talk about how we can make money off of our own bodies. Everybody stay right here. Let's talk about what's happening in Niger. But I'm so glad you kind of opened our eyes to what we're going to be talking about at the top of the hour, what happened with Henrietta Lacks, and what might have been happening to your relatives. You don't know. We'll be back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Great. Henry?
Hello.
Okay, you make sure you start playing the music 1 minute before we go out, okay? So
Okay,
it can
will
serve
do.
as a prompt. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Knighton. I just, when I was, I read so many different stories, but I said it's important for us to remember that she was in the colored section of a hospital, right?
Absolutely. And I think, it's certain things that are unfortunate, are not meant for us to be able to erase, but I think people should understand the significance of things, But I also say this too, I don't blame people of color for being untrusting of the healthcare system, but it also comes down to that point as well. And this is why I say being the CEO of your own health, how do you use the care system as a part of your team? Meaning that even if I don't trust it, how can I ask questions to be able to get answers that I know that I need to be able to influence my care? That doesn't mean that you cancel it out altogether. That means that you, again, become the CEO of your own health and make sure that you're asking questions so that way you can make better informed decisions. And then when you're not happy with that dialogue, understanding that individuals they have a responsibility. We have a responsibility in healthcare as providers to make sure that patients are clear about what it is that they need. The problem is that sometimes people may not know the correct questions to ask. And that's why it's always important to have some sort of advocate, which is something that I know we've talked about on the show before.
Well, just how do we, is there any way for us to track? Well, I want to think about this because one day I want you to come back. I mean, not one day. I mean, we need to talk about this soon. The papers that we signed before we have procedures in hospitals, what we should be looking for. Because we just signed them.
Oh, yeah, the informed consent.
Yeah, I mean, because we don't know about that, right?
That's true. And I think that it's important for people to know what's going on. So, for example, depending on you need to know whether or not you're at a teaching hospital versus being at a non-teaching hospital. Mm-hmm. If you're at a teaching hospital, please understand that the surgeon that signed their name on the dotted line may not be the person that's making a cut on you. So that's important to be able to understand. It's also understanding that informed consent talks about risk. It talks about blood products being given. So it's very generically written, but it's written to cover all of the bases of understanding that, as I mentioned, some of these things may be happening, meaning the person that's making the cuts may not be the person that's the primary, that there's risk associated with infections such as bleeding. I mean, with surgery such as bleeding, such as infections. So that information is in there. But I think the other informed consent that you have to be aware of is when you are participating in research studies, understanding, okay, if I'm participating in a research study, what does that mean? What am I giving up? Are they going to be keeping my tissues? Am I signing a line? Because there is a line on the informed consent, depending on the type of study, that will ask, it'll say, and it'll have you check yes or no. I am okay with my cells being used beyond the study. I am okay with my tissues being used beyond the study. I'm okay with my blood samples being used beyond the study. So it's very important for those things to be understood ahead of time, instead of assuming that it's just a in and out in regards to you having that one-time interaction because of the surgery.
Thank you for that.
Procedure or research.
Well, no, we need to know that because we need to understand what it is to be in a teaching hospital as opposed to not being in a teaching hospital. It's probably a lot of it just so happens when I was in college, I had to go to the hospital at least once. I'm just, don't want to mistake. And in Washington, Washington, D.C., the hospitals are teaching hospitals because they're university affiliated. Howard is part of Howard's med school. At least it was when we owned it. Yes.
Hi, I was not able to get Chaparral yet.
Okay, no, then we just go on.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
so we have Professor Akwete, Attorney Patillo, and Dwight McKee ready to go.
Okay, fantastic. Hello, Professor Akwete. How are you?
And we have 45 seconds.
Okay.
Fine.
Great. Just doing a mic
test. I'm so glad you're talking about medical issues. Yes.
Oh, well, I'll invite you to be part of that conversation. This woman is absolutely brilliant, and we should take advantage of her. You should have her doing some lectures for you in Washington and around the world. She's one of the few infection preventionists on earth, and she's African American. And Dwight McKee, I know you're on mute, and I'm sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I can hear you. And Attorney Patillo.
Good morning.
Okay, fantastic.
Good morning.
Can't wait to get to all of you. All right, stand by, everybody.
All right, and we are coming back.
Okay, thank you.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Hope to see you on Friday, August 4th from 10 to 2 p.m. at the Kroc Center at 119th and Elizabeth. Congressman Jonathan Jackson will be having his first annual senior resource fair. You'll be able to find out about resources that are available to you in the healthcare sector, but also socially, transportation. You're going to have elected officials there. You're going to have healthcare officials there, doctors. It's going to be resource rich, if you will, no pun. And so please get on over there. You get a free health screening. That's right. Not just checking your heart and your pulse, but looking in your mouth, looking in your eyes. So many of our health issues can be seen there. And so it's going to be pretty comprehensive, and I don't want you to miss it. From 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. At the Kroc Center at 1250 West 119th. That's 119th and Elizabeth. Can't wait to see you there on Friday. What's happening in Niger? And how is it that so much that is now happening on the African continent is figuring so prominently in American news? Now, when you go to Europe, yeah, I mean, because Europe is like really on top of Africa, so they have another kind of relationship because they're really not that far away. But in the United States, even though we've derived so much of our wealth in terms of people and actual resources, mineral resources from Africa, it's just been kind of far away. It truly is the dark or the darkened continent. Certainly there's been a veil draped over it. But as Africa is roaring forward, as Brazil is roaring forward, as India, and China, as these former colonized countries are moving forward and are moving into preeminence, not just prominence. We're seeing them figure more prominently in the news, at least as prominently as Western European nations. So when Niger has this coup, and it is now something that has got everybody stirred up, France, Italy, Spain, American nationals, they're all trying to get out of there. And it has become a crisis of international dimensions. And so we need to know, since it is about the money for so many of us, what's going on? Why is it that the military junta who are in place, why are they saying, do not, Europe, don't come in here. Don't you do it. America, don't come in here. Don't you do it. And they're getting some support from other African leaders. And so we just need to find out what's going on. So I said, well, we've got to go back to Professor Kwete, indeed, one of the world's preeminent experts on Africa, attorney Robert Patillo, National Rainbow Push Coalition, and host of his own show on WAOK in Atlanta, but you can hear it all over the country from 1 to 4 Eastern time on Sundays. But of course, Dwight McKee, brilliant social scientist, he said, I want to listen, because those of us who are part of the African diaspora, those of us who were brought into the Americas because of slavery, we, as Reverend Jesse Jackson has said, Professor Kwete, we were brought here on an international project. So international affairs would be in our natural interest. So talk to me.
Amen to that.
Why is Niger? Yeah. I mean, France is saying, wait a minute, and they're still getting their uranium from there. I mean, talk to me. What is the significance of Niger?
Well, Niger is extremely significant also because it shares the same predicament with all these African countries. I will try not to go too far back because Africa, what we see today in Africa has deep roots. It didn't happen overnight, but we don't have time to go too far back. Africa is 1.4 billion people, 1.3, and it's growing very fast. So soon it will be have more people than India and China. But whereas those two are single countries, so they have one vote each in the UN General Assembly, Africa has 54 votes because it's 54 recognized countries. Some of us also think that Morocco is wrong to hold on to Western Sahara. So the African Union regards Western Sahara as a member. So we have 55 countries, depending on how you count them. And so these are small balkanized countries, and this was done by the Europeans to keep African countries small and weak so they can keep stealing the resources, which they were stealing long before colonization in the 1800s, as you have already mentioned about slavery. So there is a background to this. But to cut to the case in Niger, I am afraid that, there is so much facets to this. And I am very disturbed by the kind of analysis. As you said, it's all of a sudden become big news. But the news that I hear, the analysis that I hear and see and read, upset me because it's so riddled with falsehoods. So let me be clear and try and point what I think are the most important. The first important thing to understand is that I think the coup makers in Niger are wrong. They are soldiers who want to steal the resources too, so they have overthrown the people's choice, but they have guns and the people don't have guns. And therefore, they are holding it to their heads, literally. I mean, the current junta leader, General Chiani, his job 2-3 weeks ago was to guard the president. Okay? I mean, they don't have the Secret Service. Here, the President of the United States is guarded by the Secret Service. In most other countries, they have the Presidential Guard. So what you have is the person guarding the president who heard that he was about to be replaced, and he had good relations with the two elected presidents, the previous one and the current one. But because he was going to be rotated out, he got up at 3 a.m. and said, okay, I'm holding the president hostage. In fact, the army, the rest of the army outside of the presidential palace at first said, we don't agree. Then it came down to, well, we'll have to fight it out. So the rest of the army said, okay, we agree with you. But also West Africa, you did mention that some West African countries have said that they are against military power being used to get rid of these coup makers, these juntas. But those are 3 countries. They themselves have made coups, so they are soldiers. And again, I was born in Ghana. I've lived in the U.S. now for more than 50 years, but I was born in Ghana. And I am well aware. I've worked in Nigeria. I've worked all over the region. I have a good understanding of coups, and I will tell you that there are problems, but the soldiers are not the solution. They make them worse. They steal too, and they have guns, and you can't even criticize them. You can criticize the civilian government. You can write about them. So I'm against the coup in Niger. And, they use the excuse that there's economic hardship, which is absolutely true. And yes, France has been stealing for decades the uranium that Niger has. The tragedy of Niger is that, in my mind, sometimes I think we should see it like the Saudi Arabia when it comes to uranium, because they have a lot of it, and it is an important resource and for energy. And if it was being marketed properly, they should be as rich as Saudi Arabia is, but they are not, because France takes it. France gets a lot of its electricity from nuclear power, and they get that out of Niger. They pay them very little, and they litter the place with the residue. So France has been absolutely horrible there. And so the people have a right to be angry, but the best way is to do it democratically. And actually, on that score, Niger stands out with a few other countries in West Africa, like Senegal, where they are trying to hold on to the democracy, because it is very tempting for soldiers to say, oh, these politicians are dirty, we have the guns, we're going to kill them, arrest them. But when they get in, it has never worked. Ghana tried it for a lot, and we gave it up some 25 years ago that no. It's a red herring. The soldiers only make things worse. So in Niger, I think it is wrong. And then the threat of saying we're going to remove these people, the junta from Niger, the threat is not just coming from, as you mentioned, the Western countries, especially the European countries. They are now lining up to take out their people. The U.S. hasn't decided if it will do it. The threat to remove the junta leaders is coming from the West Africans. We have an organization of 15 members called ECOWAS, Economic Community for West Africa. It's now headed by Nigeria, which is the most populous country and the richest country in West Africa. They just had a new president, and that president was, by consensus, made the head of the regional body because it rotates. And they met in Abuja, Nigeria, last Sunday. And they said, we can't allow this because there have been 3 coups in Mali, in Guinea, in Burkina Faso. And I am saying all these countries have serious problems, many of them caused by the West, by especially the Europeans. The U.S. has not always played the best role, so there's no question there are problems there. But the soldiers, I will say it and say it again, they are not the solution.
Sure.
What they do is they are corrupt, and you can't even criticize them because they have the guns. They turn the guns on the citizens whose money gives them the guns and their uniforms.
Well, we saw that, of course, with Mobutu and the Congo. Most of us didn't see it, but if you want to have an historical example, and who do these soldiers work for? I mean, there are a lot of questions, Robert Patillo. We just, of course, had Professor Akwete lay this out for us brilliantly and help us to really be there. What's your take on this?
Well, I think we need to think back a couple of years. If you remember back during the Trump administration, we had the 4 U.S. soldiers that were killed in Niger. And did not get a lot of attention at the time in U.S. media. But there's been a quiet war going on in Africa between the Western powers and the Eastern powers. Very much could be considered not a Cold War, but a covert war that's been taking place by using proxy forces, just as we saw during the Cold War. With the U.S. and Russia, they wanted to fight, but they didn't want to kill white people. So they would fight in Korea and kill Korean people. They would fight in Angola. They would fight in Vietnam and kill yellow people because they wanted to test their weapons out and test their ideological struggle, but they didn't want white people dying in the middle of it. And they've been doing this in Africa for the last decade with very little attention taking place. In many ways, it seems as if this is a new front opening up and this expanding Ukraine war, where you have on one side the pro-Western forces of some of the Western African nations, as was just mentioned. But then on the other hand, you have some of these revolutionary forces that are being funded and being supported by President Putin. It's the new military junta in Niger draws much of their funding from Putin, much of their weaponry from Putin. We're seeing similar things in Mali and as well as Burkina Faso. If you look at the Sudanese conflict, it's also a very similar ideological struggle between larger powers. And the question is, how much longer will Europe be able to use Africa as a resource farm? How much longer will we have soft colonialism in place, as we're seeing currently, where the European powers still maintain economic control over many nations, and then those nations are being puppeted either by U.S. Corporations, the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, which is mining cobalt and many other resources in the Congo, the Russians who need fossil fuels, and therefore they're allowing the Wagner Group to act as the military for some nations. So we're seeing Africa being pulled in many directions, and the fear is that because these European nations don't want to go head to head, France and Germany don't want to have a direct conflict with Russia, that they will use Africa as the proxy, as the playground where they can go and test out their weapons, test out their ideological struggles, and then fight for supremacy. And the winners will be Europeans. The losers will be millions of dead people on the African continent. And we cannot take this outside of the context of the current right-leaning fascism that we see sweeping Europe. Rishi Sunak in Great Britain is the most right-wing prime minister they've had since Margaret Thatcher. Macron very much has been working on rebuilding the French Empire. And I don't think anyone trusts him, including the French people. There's been a referendum in place to dissolve this French government and replace with a Sixth Republic because of the power invested in the president of France, which is really unmatched in the developed world. We see Giorgia Meloni in Italy, the neo-fascist Mussolini wannabe, who's working there. And because of the rise of these far right-wing groups, Viktor Orban, Lukashenko, etc., they've treated Africans exceedingly cruel and brutally, particularly during the migrant crisis. We saw the boat off of the coast of Greece, 700 people there dead. There have been some proposals to build a seawall between North Africa and Europe across the Mediterranean to keep Africans out. So at the same time the European powers want to stop Africans from coming there, they still want to have power over Africa in order to exploit their resources. They want the resources. They don't want the people. And we're seeing this now starting to come to a head. So I think people need to monitor this situation. This is not some far-off, far-flung conflict that will not have an impact on you. If this turns into a hot war between the ECOs and the supporters of the Western powers and the Eastern Bloc, supported by China and Russia, we could see the Third World War not break out in Ukraine, but break out on the African continent.
Yes, we could absolutely see that. So how do we avoid that, Professor Okwete?
Oh yes, and I am glad that my brother brought in the issue of the European exploitation and not wanting Africans there, which is egregious because they've been going to Africa anytime they want and taking out everything. But now they say a few Africans trying to get into Europe cannot come in. They drown them in the Mediterranean. They pay corrupt African governments to say your job is to make sure no Africans get here. Mm-hmm. Now, part of the wars that are going on, the struggle is actually also over terrorism. There are insurgency groups that are just killing. In fact, all of the 4 countries where there have been these coups, the soldiers say, oh, it's because the politicians are not giving us enough arms to fight the terrorists and keep our people safe. So I'm glad that he brought that in. Now, actually, since the coup in Niger in the 10 days ago, Russia has come out and said, we want democracy restored. Because of all the countries in West Africa, Russia has very little cachet, very little closeness with Niger. Niger actually, when the other 3 countries, especially Mali and Burkina Faso, kicked out the French, they went into Niger and they went into Chad. So Russia has not come out against the coup. They have come out against the coup. Now, your question is, how do we get out of it? My hope, because again, it's important to understand that the threat of military force to remove the junta, if they don't, they were given 1 week. That was not given by the French. It wasn't given by the Americans. It wasn't given by it was given by West Africa together. Now, Burkina Faso and Mali, who came out and said, well, we don't want the force to be used, it's because they were not elected. The African Union and ECOWAS and all the regional bodies say, if you come to power unconstitutionally, if you remove an elected president, you are out. You don't attend our meetings. So Burkina Faso and Mali did not attend the meetings in Abuja on Sunday, and they have been kicked out. And so, of course, they will support the putschis because they are like them. My point is, all of West Africans say this has to stop. These rolling coups have to stop. And because we were weak with the Malians and the Mali soldiers and the Burkina soldiers and the soldiers on Guinea, when we place sanctions on them and we say sanctions are hurting the people and so we ease them off, no, if you don't get out of power, we will use force to remove you. They use force to remove Yahya Jammeh and Gambia, and that set things down. Now, it's going to be difficult. It is going to be difficult to coordinate this military action and how it is funded. But it is a West African thing, and I want it to succeed. But even more, I would like the junta leaders, General Chiani, to come to his senses and say, no, okay, give us safe passage. We are leaving because the best solution to stop the exploitation, to stop the war, to stop the killing of Africans is to have democracy for the people to vote. And if a leader is bad, if he is incompetent, he or she is incompetent, if he or she is corrupt, if he or she is taking the country into the wrong direction, what is the solution? You vote them out. If you are a military person and think you care about the country and you have the skills, take off your uniform, run for office. I can tell you that when there are coups, there was a coup in Zimbabwe, there has been a coup in Egypt. I speak out against them and I'm asked on the air. Oh, but the people seem to be rejoicing. Right now, people will tell you all the youth in Niamey, the capital, they are in the street, they are applauding. Of course they are applauding because the soldiers are there with guns to their head. You see that the Europeans are being rescued. They are getting out. Nobody is going to rescue the poor Nigeria, the youth. And so they look at those with the guns and they say, well, they have a gun next to your head. They will come into your house at night. And so you put up appearances. Also, yes, you are unhappy with the politicians. But the point is, you have to use democratic processes, remove them, bring in another. Again, I was born in Ghana. The current government in Ghana is very unpopular because there's been issues of corruption. They signed bad deals with the IMF. The people are suffering, but they are saying, okay, we have to wait because next year, in December, Ghana will have another election. The opposition party has to come out with a better program. An independent can run. So West African countries have problems, but coups are not the answer. And the solution here is, I think that people should back what ECOWAS is doing. It is going to be difficult. It is going to be risky. But the alternative is to leave the coup makers in charge in Niger. And yes, as I was saying, they don't have a good relationship. Niger doesn't have the good relationship with Russia yet. But if you leave them in power, I am convinced they will run to Russia and you will see Wagner in Niger. And instead of the uranium being taken by the French, it will be taken by Wagner. A quick point to add now.
Okay, I've got 30 seconds. One
country that has all uranium that anybody is Russia. So I'm not saying it will be taken to Russia, but Wagner can take it and sell it anywhere. So these days, the groups that are stealing African resources, nobody is doing it worse than Wagner, which is connected to the Russians.
So look, you know what? Don't we just see a lot of, we see everybody interfering. And I think, we need to, I think that if it's Russia that's interfering, the United States, the European country, whoever it is, it's got to stop. Africa cannot be the world's playground. It can't be the world's plaything. Professor Akwete, you will be back along with Robert Patillo, Dwight McKee. I can't wait to hear what you have to say on the other side as we talk about Henrietta Lacks, the HeLa cells. This Black woman put in the segregated section of one of the top hospitals on earth. They took her cells without her permission and they made billions, if not trillions of dollars. Her family's not been compensated until yesterday. What happened? Let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show. Thank you, Professor Akwete. Henry, you got to play it at 6:57 or at 57, and at 27, okay?
Sorry about that, yes.
No. Please do that because that helps everybody to begin to get out. Okay? All right. So we're going to say goodbye to Professor Akwete. But Professor Akwete, I want you to be able to wrap up your remarks to people who are watching us, on Facebook and on YouTube.
All right. Well, again, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And, I always love coming on your show because I learn so much and I get to share my opinion. But particularly on this issue, because as you said, all of a sudden, the Western media, the U.S. media, they are publishing all these stories because the U.S. does have two bases in Niger. It's coming up, but the analysis is so wrong. There are some people saying, this coup is being made by soldiers who back the U.S. Others are saying, oh, no, these are soldiers who are angry at the U.S. And I am saying there are a lot of problems. Africa's resources are being stolen. People are very unhappy. But the one way I trust out of the system is to give the people a say, and not just because some people march in the streets, because usually the protests are in the capital cities where maybe 5% of the people live. It's as if you say, we want to know what Americans want only by what we see people in the streets in Washington, D.C. saying. That is no way to know what Americans want. So you have to go with good elections. And Niger, for the last 12 years, has had good elections, well observed. The one president won twice, he handed over. And if you look at the facts, the junta leaders, they are making this up. To my mind, they are just greedy. They say, oh,
Well,
if we take
who are
up
behind
power,
them?
we
Do you
get
have
to
any?
control it.
Well, you know, everybody's got supporters. Who support these junta leaders?
It is
Do we
hard
know?
to say. I think
Is it
I
the
think sometimes it's
corporations
the
or
other way around that people will come in and say, if you have power, then we will support you. I fear that's what is going to happen. If they happen to hang on, all kinds of countries will say, okay, we'll come and keep you in power so long as you allow us to get your uranium and to get anything else that you want. But for now, I don't see a lot of support for them. The Burkina and Mali that I've said it, they themselves are on the back foot, okay? And so they just, what they are saying is largely rhetoric, which is why the junta leaders, in my opinion, must be forced to leave quickly, because the longer they stay, the longer it becomes tempting for various countries, even some of the Europeans, to say, well, we didn't like them, but hey, whoever is controlling an African country, if it's going to do what we want, then we will support them. So that's the danger of them staying for too long. Don't stay, every hour counts.
well, you know, what do they say? Possession is 9/10 of the law, right? So
Yes.
every minute
Yes.
that they stay in power, the more they are empowered. Cannot wait to have you back. It'll be in the next few days, if not sooner than that, because this is a growing crisis. And
Let me thank
yes. Professor Okwete?
and thank my friend on the show. I'm sorry I have to leave. I've told Santita I have to go get myself checked out.
And be well, because we need you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Sending you so much love today. Dwight McKee, you want
Yes, and
yes, Professor.
oh, I will say I send you much love as well, and apologies to my brothers that I can't stay. But yes, I will be back, and I hope that at some point we'll also talk about climate change, because it's devastating Africa.
Absolutely. Dwight, I know you want to be in on that conversation.
Yeah, pretty much. I think he was very, very comprehensive in his analysis. And the tragedy is what's happening in Nigeria is happening in so many other African countries. And they're only separated by language and who's exploiting them, which European countries are exploiting them. And so Europe lives off the prerogatives of still in Africa, still in what they steal out of Africa.
Still.
Whether it's, the French in Nigeria, in Niger, or the English in Nigeria, or whatever country that they had set up to colonize, they're still living off prerogatives of those countries. And so we're hoping that the new Africa can operate in such a way as that they can be able to market and take advantage of their own resources and develop, wealth unto themselves and be able to feed themselves and to supervise their own minerals and their own natural resources and be able to develop an economy that is self-sustaining. And I think a key to that is our relationship with the Africans.
Mm-hmm.
Is that if we can develop the right trade relationships with them and develop the right functional relationship with them, I think it helps everybody. Your brother did something that was very remarkable when he was in Congress, is he wrote an African trade bill, and they got him out the way before it could be implemented. But it's a brilliant move to
by Jonathan?
Hi, Ms. Jackson.
Jesse Jr.
Jesse Jr., okay.
He wrote an African trade bill.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was a brilliant.
Wait. Hold on 1 moment. I'm hearing some background noise. I want to get that to get clean that up before we get on the air. Is anyone, make sure you're in a room that is quiet, because we're getting an echo.
Hi, Miss Jackson.
Yes. What is that, Henry? The sound.
I'm not exactly sure. The
Okay.
speakers here aren't working, so I'm only hearing like the summation of everything in a tiny speaker next to me. So I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, I was hearing some. It sounded like we were in a tunnel. Somebody sounds like they're in a tunnel. If you could isolate them and find out who.
All right, I'll try and work on that. We have Attorney Hoffler, Attorney Sanat, and Attorney Fancher ready to go as well.
Okay, fantastic. Attorney Sanat, how are you, so Aurora?
So we are back in 15 seconds.
Attorney Sanat? Hey, I'm very quickly. I'm coming up. Attorney Fancher?
Good morning. I'm so sorry. Good morning.
Okay, you sound like you're in a tunnel, Attorney Sanat. Let's want to make sure you're in the right place.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, the second hour. It is Wednesday, August 2nd, 2023, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station at AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody get on over there as soon as you can. Robert Williams and Jewel and Kenneth Rush, how you doing, everybody? Eric out there in LA, Carol out there in LA, sending you so much love. Ashley in Memphis, hey. Lorraine here in Chicago, at least in the suburbs of Chicago. And Laura Bell, how you doing? Sending you all so much love today. Let's talk about Henrietta Lacks. Everyone's talking about the Trump indictment, and there will be time for that and the trials, because guess what? That's going to be with us now for more than a year. But we need to talk about this tremendously momentous case that was, there was some movement toward justice, and I want to talk about that today. Henrietta Lack, the Black woman who died at the age of 31 from cervical cancer, whose cells were taken from her without her permission, but the cells will not die, and Big Pharma has made billions, if not trillions, as Dr. Shanina Knighton speculated, and I would estimate in the trillions of dollars, and her family have not been compensated until yesterday. Wonder how much money they got. Wonder if they own the company or part of the company. They should, because they have built Big Pharma. Big Pharma has been built upon Henrietta Lacks. Call me at 773-763-9278 if you want to make a comment about the Trump indictments. There will be more to come, doubtless, coming out of Georgia. Call me at 773-763-9278. Let's get some of these headlines out of the way so that we can get to the rest of the show. Donald Trump was charged with plotting to overturn his 2020 election loss. The former president faces 4 charges. The 45-page indictment revealed yesterday accuses him of 3 conspiracies and lists 6 co-conspirators. 2 Michigan Republicans were charged over alleged voting machine tampering. The case stems from an attempt to prove the false claim that the 2020 presidential election was wrongly called for President Joe Biden over then President Trump. A former state lawmaker and losing candidate for state attorney general were charged yesterday with felonies involving these voting machines. Illegal crossings at the U.S. border surged last month by more than 30,000. More than 100,000 arrests were made. That's up 30,000 more than June, everybody, than in June. The U.S. suspended security operation with Niger. We've just been talking about that after an apparent coup last week. Military officers ousted the elected president, and since then, the U.S. has been trying to convince them to stand down. So far, their efforts have not been successful. Most parents don't know that exposing babies to peanuts can prevent allergies. Introducing peanuts to infants between 4 and 6 months can dramatically lower the risk of peanut allergies. Health officials have recommended the practice since 2017. In Chicago, we'll have a high of 89 degrees. It's hazy out there, but sunny. In Minneapolis, St. Paul, partly cloudy. 90 degrees will be the high. Today in the Women's World Cup, you'll see Panama face off against France, Jamaica face off against Brazil, South Africa face off against Italy, and Argentina face off against Sweden, everybody. Yesterday, the Netherlands 7, Vietnam 0. Portugal and the U.S. were tied at 0. England 6, China 1. Denmark 2, Haiti 0. It's important for you to score points so that you can move up in the rankings, everybody, so you can advance to the next round. It's not enough just to win a game. You need to get points in the FIFA system, everybody. In Major League Baseball, the Twins 3, the Cardinals 2. Get this, everybody. I don't know what the Cubs were on, but I hope they stay on it. The Cubs 20. That's right. And the Cincinnati Reds 9. My eyes popped. The Rangers 2, the White Sox 0. In the WNBA, the sky will be off until Friday, but the sun, well, they bested the Lynx 79-69. And those are some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. I do hope that you will be joining Congressman Jonathan Jackson and a host of elected officials and doctors and social workers and people who are heads of agencies. It's a first annual senior resource fair. You're going to have free healthcare screenings, but healthcare is not going to be the only focus. You'll know what you have access to socially, culturally here in this city, in this district. And so I hope you'll join us on Friday from 10 to 2 p.m. at the Kroc Center at 119th and Elizabeth, everybody. 119th and Elizabeth. It is going to be fantastic. Please call Congressman Jackson's office at 773-779-2400, 773-779-2400 for more information. You're going to get your questions answered about Medicare and Medicaid, nutrition, wellness with certified experts. You're going to find out what community organizations and services are available to you. You can get more than a discount ticket at the movies, everybody, as a senior. And Congressman Jackson is going to help you to find out what you have access to. Everybody, let's talk about Henrietta Lacks. Who is she? 31 years of age. She found that she had cancer. And it turns out that although she ultimately succumbed to the disease, she left the world, C.K. Hoffler, a gift. Her cervical cells, it just the gift that kept on giving. They have not died. They have not died yet. Now, she died more than 70 years ago, but she was put in the Black section, the inferior section, if you will, of Johns Hopkins Hospital. Black people, since we have been on these shores, have been experimented upon. Indeed, American gynecology has been built on the backs and bodies of enslaved Black women. We were not anesthetized, everybody. We never received anesthesia. The surgeries that were performed upon us, because of course, even today, the medical establishment does not believe that Black people suffer pain or feel pain to the same extent that white people do. It's documented. So what happened with Henrietta Lacks? Well, without her knowledge, her cervical cells were taken, and Big Pharma has taken those cells. They have taken those cells and they have experimented with those cells. They have been able to create medications and establish medical protocols that have saved millions upon millions of lives. And they've made billions, if not trillions of dollars. But her family, when they found out that her cells had been harvested without their permission, without her permission, they said, okay, well, can we benefit from this? Big Pharma said, absolutely not. Well, that was until Attorney Ben Crump worked that out yesterday. Well, not yesterday. It was revealed yesterday. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, of course, you're joined by Attorney Mark Fancher. Cannot wait to hear what you've got to say. Attorney Anastasie Sanat from the Haitian American Lawyers Association. She's the past president of their Illinois chapter. Dwight McKee is with us. Attorney Robert Patillo. I cannot wait for this whole panel to talk to us about this, because CK, this is big. This
is huge, and I called my friend. We're here today, Santita, at the National Bar Association. We've been meeting since Saturday. And Ben Crump, and as everyone knows, because it's pretty, we've worked on cases together. Ben, who's the past president of the National Bar, came in right from the final negotiations, came into our bar meeting. And we had a whole session, really, on a number of things. And this was one of the cases that he discussed. And, when Ben filed this lawsuit, everyone called him crazy. Because, oftentimes cases that are very successful, and I know this based on, because remember, I practiced Woolly people would often call us crazy when we file cases or file lawsuits seeking justice for the least of these, for people that everyone had forgotten, cases where the statute of limitations had run. But when you have creative lawyering, exceptional lawyering, people who are also social justice engineers, sometimes you find a way. And I just spoke to Ben Crump. He is going to join us in a few minutes, Santita.
Wonderful.
Because I think it's important for us to hear from him. You know, that's the benefit of having, having a magnificent friend and having the National Bar Association network. Because, frankly, whenever I call him, and he knew this was my segment legal Q&A, and I told him, Santita, that we're here in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you all are on in Minneapolis, and he wanted to be able to share with your audience here first, at least this morning, some of the information, because it really is a story of inspiration. But from a legal standpoint, it's also a story that the legal analyses and approach can be very helpful for other litigation that is pending where, statute of limitations is long run. And he will tell you, it's not just about the 300 pharmaceutical companies currently that may have benefited. There are over 500 pharmaceutical companies that may have benefited. So I predict there's going to be litigation for some time, and justice will be served for this family for some time as well. It should be.
Oh my goodness. Well, you know what? Let's and I thank you for getting him, and I can hear in your voice as the past president of the National Bar Association, you have been very busy. So I know that getting you on today is really a high privilege because you have a lot to do as one of the past presidents of this organization. So let me help you out a little bit today. Let's roll through this panel so we can find out their thoughts about this CK, so you can rest your voice a bit, girl. You know you're my girl. I can hear it in your voice right now.
I know I am losing my voice. I am my last day, but I am losing my voice.
No, it's going to be okay. I'm going to give you an exercise when we get off the air, so that you don't lean on those vocal folds and keep them up. But let me start with you, Attorney Anastasia Sanat. What is the significance of this case for you? I had no idea that we'd be able to get Ben Crump on, but I'm glad that we will, and I want us to be able to get these comments in before we hear from him. Attorney Anastasia Sanat.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. As you mentioned, the HeLa cells went on to become a cornerstone of modern medicine, enabling countless scientific and medical innovations that include not only the development of the polio vaccine, but genetic mapping, and even the COVID-19 vaccines that we have been using. So when you think about the amount of profit, right? So even though COVID-19 vaccines were available to the public for a significant period of time at no cost to the public, they were still being charged in that the government was being charged in order to make these things available. So profit still existed. So when we think about all the experiments and the distrust of Black people in the medical industry, this is why so many Black people distrust the medical industry. You brought up the gynecology industry, and in J. Marion Sims, he was a South Carolina physician who moved to Alabama in 1835 in order to begin those experiments, gynecology experiments, on 6 enslaved Black women that he had purchased. Now, these women did not get anesthesia. They ended up being able to cure, as you said, a disease. And in essence, they credit him with gynecology experiments. But in 2018, they had a statue of him that they pulled down from Central Park, which also used to be a home of free Black people, but we're not going to go into that part. But Lucy, Betsy, and Anarcha were the only names that they were able to discover from that experiment. We also had the Tuskegee Airmen, right? And the Tuskegee, Alabama experiment, in which all of those men, I think it lasted long after the invention of the penicillin vaccine in the 40s, in which, unfortunately, the precursor to the CDC, right, convinced them not to get cured. So when you're thinking about Black people in medicine and their distrust of the medical industry, it is because of all of these types of experiments that were done on their bodies without their permission and without compensation. So I'm excited that Attorney Ben Crump is coming. So I think that it's important for people to understand it doesn't matter how long it takes to get justice, as long as justice is served. So I'm excited that the Lax family has been able to get some sort of justice, but it's important for us to seek justice for these other people as well. all those who were involved in these experiments to advance medicine. And we have to kind of understand why Blacks distrust medicine and try to educate people. Unfortunately, people like Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, is trying to remove these types of things from history. And we can't allow them to circumvent history in that way, because it is important for you to know why you are better today. It is because of the contributions of Black bodies and Black experimentation without consent that allowed the advancement of so much medicine.
Amen. Attorney Mark Fancher, your thoughts?
Well, I have to join in congratulating Brother Crump on this. And I think that its significance, the case has significance that goes beyond just this one family. And it helps us, I think, to conceptualize the whole issue of reparations in a different way. In the law, generally, when you're talking about a situation like this, the law looks to the existence of a contract where the parties to the contract have spelled out the specific requirements that of each party. One party has made an offer, another has accepted the offer. They've spelled out the terms and what the remedies will be if one party breaches all of those kinds of things. But there are occasions when there is no contract necessarily, but one party has received a benefit that they did not receive compensation for. And Attorney Crump can explain his legal theory, but as I understand it, it was based on something called unjust enrichment, which is something that rests in what the law regards as equity, where it's not technically compliant with legal requirements, but the court tries to do justice based on the circumstances. And this is one of those cases where there was no contract. In fact, she didn't even know that they were going to do this. But they did receive a benefit that they did not deserve, that they should not have received. And so that can be the basis for it. I think that when we're talking about reparations on a more global scale, we can think in those kinds of terms without necessarily looking for a binding agreement that would entitle us, but to a fundamental injustice that entitles people to something as compensation for an injustice that they experienced. And I also think that it helps us to appreciate that the concept of reparations is not necessarily something that's limited to the way in which we generally think of it. We generally think of it as compensation for unpaid labor of enslaved Africans. And we think of it in terms of money that comes, dollar for dollar, which is really more in the nature of restitution than it is reparations. When we think of this in terms of continuing injustice, continuing discrimination and oppression that African people in the United States have experienced from the very beginning, then we've got a somewhat different proposition. It includes more than payment for compensation for unpaid labor by enslaved ancestors. It includes all of the kinds of things that have happened to us, including what happened in this case. And it doesn't always have to, reparations doesn't always have to take the form of a single big check that everybody receives. It can be done piecemeal. It can be done in discrete units so that it's more targeted, it's more focused, and it's more feasible in terms of actually making people whole, which is what reparations is supposed to be about. The final thing that I think that's really significant about the case, which is applicable to that, is that this case was challenged, as I understand it, on statute of limitations grounds. In other words, the law requires that lawsuits be filed within a very specific period of time, and that's in the interest of protecting people who are sued so that they don't look up decades down the road and find that they're being sued for something that happened long, long ago and that they're no longer in a position to try and defend. But there are circumstances, such as in this case, where it's not a matter of the event having happened and that it was one discrete limited event that came to an end and that the aggrieved person was obligated to jump up and file a lawsuit. There is sometimes what's called a continuing violation, where it's not just one offensive act, but whatever is being done continues
indefinitely into the future, so that there is no end point to it necessarily. It's ongoing, and the law allows for a litigation in that respect. We have to think of reparations in those terms as well. That there is a continuing violation that African people in this country have never come out from under the most fundamental aspects of our enslavement. In so many ways, there are badges, incidents of slavery that continue, and specifically with respect to police and how they treat us, and the way that slave patrols treated us when we were living on plantation.
Amen to that. I mean, I've got. When we come back, we're going to hear from Benjamin Crump, Attorney Benjamin Crump, but I want to hear from you, Dwight McKee, and you, Attorney Robert Patillo, before we do, because this is such a significant case. I wonder how much they've been compensated, and you know what, CK? I wonder what happened to the other blacks who were in the black section of Johns Hopkins Hospital.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I want to seize those records and find out what happened to all of those people. I got 1 minute.
But I bet we're going to find out, Santita. I bet we're going to find out. So I will bring on Attorney Ben Crump on the other side, and I think this will be a great opportunity for us to ask him some very interesting questions, both legal, moral, and social.
Absolutely. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a moment. Benjamin Crump coming up next. Okay, CK, it sounds like you're in a tunnel.
Probably because I had you on mute.
Oh, okay. No, it sounds like it now.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Well, I'm in my hotel room. I came back from where I was. I was at a breakfast, and I'm in my hotel room.
It sounds better now.
My voice is very compromised, so I will just keep it. I will keep it very close. And I know Ben only had a few minutes.
Okay.
Didn't have a lot of time to spend with us, so I will be drinking plenty of fluids.
but you know what? Do this. Go You just go and feel the vibration in your nose. Can you? Okay, that's where your voice needs to be. Seriously, in terms of vocal placement, because I can hear you leaning on your voice now, and you're going to do a little bit more harm than you need to. So just
Well, fortunately, today is my last date, but
no, just a little. I know it's a little higher. Just go a little higher, and don't whisper. Whispering is more harmful. Just do that. Speak when you need to, and then get off your voice.
Okay, I will do that.
Yeah, I will. You don't need to.
Okay. Well, while I'm humming, I'll put you all on mute, and I'm going to get. How much time? I told Ben 7:30, which is in a minute. Should I wait? When do you want me?
Let me bring him on at 7:37, because that way I can get Robert and Dwight in. Is that okay?
Okay. I think that's okay. I told him 7:30.
Okay, no, look, 7:30 is what you settled on. Bring him on, and then Dwight and Robert, I'm going to bring you on right after that, so you can. Even react to what you've heard. Okay, so thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't want to. He's
let's bring him on.
Doing a lot of interviews. Because I don't want to lose him.
Let's bring him on, and I thank you for that. Thank you for that.
All right.
Everybody, let everyone know we've got Benjamin Crump coming up.
Hi, Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Is there a guest I need to call?
No, she's going to bring in Attorney Crump on her phone.
Oh, okay, perfect.
She's going to conference him in. That's why I want to make sure that her sound is not compromised.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. All right, perfect. Sounds good. We have about a minute and a half before the commercial break ends.
Fantastic. Well, so what have you all heard? What have you all heard thus far, Dwight?
Well, it's really emblematic of our relationship with Western civilization. It's been a very vampire relationship where they've been drafted and we've been the host. It's that, they've been drinking our blood at every level for 400 years. whether it's taking the gold out of South Africa, whether it's taking the diamonds out of South Africa, whether it's taking the rubber out of Liberia, whether it's, taking our labor in America for the building up this economy. It's just been our relationship, taking uranium out of Nigeria. It's a very vampire relationship we have with them. And, they drink our blood and then wonder how come we're weak and they're strong. And refuse to compensate us for that level of exploitation. You look at what's happening with Haiti and France for the last 200 years. It's most of their nutrition, most of their wealth, most of their advancement has come at the expense of poor people and people of color all over the world. And it's very unfortunate. And refusing
Stand by.
it and refuse to compensate us for it.
Absolutely.
So this is a big thing. This is a big thing, you all.
I think so. Stand by.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am free.
Hey, everybody. Well, justice denied. Well, if you just hold on till the morning comes, justice will come, but you have to fight for it, everybody. Nobody's going to give it to you. You got to fight for it. Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820 in Chicago, and the nation's largest progressive talk radio station and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody get on over there. Hey, Meddy, I've missed you, girl. Kenneth, everybody. We are so excited and honored, CK, because of Attorney CK Hoffler, the former president of the National Bar Association. Because of her, we have this gentleman with us today. CK, why don't you take it away?
Absolutely. Well, Ben Crump is someone who really doesn't need an introduction. But I just have to say of my great friend Ben Crump, and our past president of the National Bar Association, stellar, iconic trial lawyer. And by the way, he's been a stellar, iconic trial lawyer for decades. Mm-hmm. Way before people saw him on the national and international screen, he was that stellar, iconic trial lawyer, civil rights lawyer, human rights lawyer, injury lawyer, commercial lawyer, and now a lawyer who, amongst his accomplishments, can say that he took his creativity as a lawyer, as a trial lawyer, and sued and pursued justice on behalf of Henry Blacks and got justice on theories that people thought he was crazy for advancing. And then, I'm going to say it, people thought too. I was not one of them because, of course, I practiced with Willie Gary, so nothing to me is too creative. But a lot of people said that's not going to go.
Girl, everybody thinks Ben Crump is nuts. Come on, put it right where it is. Everyone thinks he's just as crazy. Mr. Omega Sci-Fi, just till he dies. Just
Omega
a nut.
Sci-Fi. but Santita, it is such an honor. Ben, your dad, Reverend Jackson, knows Ben, one of his frat brothers, but he's been in this fight as well for social justice for a very long time. And so, Ben, it just gives me such pleasure. We talked about this yesterday. Your great victory, another great victory, but this is a different victory. This is a different type of victory whose reach and the ramifications and consequences are unlimited in terms of justice for our people and victims throughout the world. It's not limited to the United States.
CK,
so
it's
against that
shocking.
Background,
CK, I mean, I can just speak on behalf of the listeners. It's absolutely shocking. We were shocked that we heard that this settlement had been reached, right? But I'm not shocked at who led the fight for it. Okay, I mean,
absolutely.
I'm not shocked by that. But you do have to be a little crazy. But you're a little nuts, CK, and because who else would? So is Willie Gary. All you freedom fighters are a little nuts, a little crazy. I think there's a book on the people the geniuses who are touched with madness, and this is one of those persons. Really. Please help us to understand what happened here, because it's such a shock. And we're joined by your colleagues who absolutely have such tremendous admiration for you. Attorney Mark Fancher out of Michigan, great civil libertarian, attorney Anastasia Sanat. These are all lawyers who ought to be on your team. She is one of the most brilliant young lawyers we know, former president of the Haitian American Lawyers Association, attorney Robert Patillo, part of the national leadership team at Rainbow Push, WAOK radio host, brilliant social scientist Dwight McKee, one of the founding members of Operation Push, and attorney C.K. Hoffler. So, CK, I think we just have to have Mr. Q Sci-Fi talk with us this morning.
Well, I'm so very honored to be on with you, queens and kings. And it's like I said at the conference, I flew in, CK moderated one of the best conferences, not just of the National Bar Convention, but of any legal convention I've been part of. And I was running a little tardy because we just had a historic day. I mean, words can't even articulate how special yesterday was. Ms. Jackson, if you talk about poetic justice, it was poetic justice. We stayed in a federal courthouse from 9 a.m. to almost midnight at this settlement conference over this important litigation. We can't get into the terms of the settlement, but the litigation itself, we can't talk about trying to make this civil wrong into a civil right. This challenge against medical racism, this challenge to give this Black woman named Henrietta Lacks that should be taught in every American history class. It is not just Black. She is American history completely. What she has done for the world cannot be underestimated. Her contributions when she was a guinea pig, like so many other Black people at Johns Hopkins and Baltimore, Maryland in the 1950s. The old saying, CK, was if you were Black, don't be walking around Johns Hopkins at nighttime because they will take you and experiment on your body. They were the original body snatchers. And so it was this Black woman who, her story is almost biblical, I believe. She sacrificed so much. They put those radiation rods in her. And y'all know how bad radiation is. You do chemo for a year to try to avoid the pain and the agony associated and the fatality associated with putting radiation in the body. And so they didn't care about doing that to Black people. They put radiation rods in her cervical area, and they then stole, robbed her of her cells because they were trying to experiment and see if a human cell could regenerate outside the human body. And I'm not surprised at all. And I know you and CK aren't surprised, Ms. Jackson, that it was a Black woman who had the strongest, most miraculous cells that could regenerate every 24 hours from 1951 into present. And based on that, every pharmaceutical company in the world has made billions upon billions upon billions of dollars. And her Black family, her children, didn't get not one red cent. So when they came to me, CK, and this is direct attribution to you and Willie Gary and the great national bar lawyers like Fred Gray and them, who say, I know they're going to say we crazy, but what do we have this legal education for? What do we have these law degrees for if it is not to go challenge the status quo, to go challenge Pharaoh, to go speak truth to power, even when they say we crazy? And they say we were real crazy, CK. We're going to bring a 70-year lawsuit. They like, you lost your rocket. Well, they not laughing now. And right now, CK, it's like my mama said, and I try not to swear. After the announcement came in, it was all over the news. My mama, Ellen Crump, bless her soul, Miss Jackson, she said, so baby, they say you all are going to sue other pharmaceutical companies. How
how many more you gonna sue? And I said, Mama, we're gonna sue every damn one of them.
Absolutely.
Every pharmaceutical company is gonna give this black family some money. And that is really, Miss Jackson, learning from black lawyers like C.K. Young, who said, hey, you can find a way. Intellect. Our people built pyramids. Our people created algebra. You can find a way to give value to black life and black humanity. You just got to go do it, young lawyer. And so it was a historic day. It was on her birthday. That's what was so poetic about it. She would have been 103 years old. They meant it for bad. I was trying to do the announcement yesterday and get to the NBA convention. But no, I got to be careful. We can't get into too much of it. But we stayed there, CK. You know how you get in those marathon settlement conferences and federal magistrates, like, ain't nobody leaving. And so, they did it for bad. God meant it for good. And it turned out we had to do the press conference the next day, which was yesterday on her birthday. And they didn't want it to get that much attention. But because they then finished it up on the July 31st date, we went into August 1st, and everybody in the world, CK, covered the story because it was her birthday, and we got to give her this great present on her birthday. And so God is good, and to God be the glory.
Well, let me ask you this, because CK, I know that everyone wants to speak with Attorney Crump today, and I'm just so honored that you would be here. And CK, thank you for getting Soror Sanat. You know, he's our brother, Mr. Q Sci-Fi, since with the women of Delta Sigma Theta. But I'll leave that alone. But let me put this right here. She was in the segregated section of this hospital, in the black section. Attorney Crump, it makes me wonder what else happened to the other black patients at Johns Hopkins. I mean, you talk about the body snatchers. That's no joke, because that happens at all these hospitals all around the country. That's why black folks, my mother didn't want us going into hospitals. And mind you, we were born in the 60s and the 70s. She just had problems with this establishment because of things that they heard. And then my grandmother also worked at the VA hospital, and just the things that you needed to watch out for. But these were black folks who were in the black section. Attorney Crump, is this making other people who were there at the time think and wonder what happened with their bodies?
We don't even have to guess because we know medical racism was rampant all across America, down at Tuskegee. CK, Fred Gray, our hero, he took on the victims of the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, where they would experiment and, where the effects of the body of syphilis were untreated, just evil. And then we know in Mississippi, they were having the Mississippi appendectomies, where when black women would go in for routine medical experiments, they were sterilizing them, giving them hysterectomies. And they did it to thousands of black women, the most notable being the great Fannie Lou Hamer, the civil rights icon, Miss Jackson, who said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. She got sterilized at 23 years old when she went in for a routine medical checkup. And so, they were doing it. How many other black people they tried to get their cells to regenerate and put the radiation rods in them, and they died horrible deaths like Henrietta Lacks that we would never know about. So that's why we keep fighting to say we are unapologetic defenders of black life and black liberty and black humanity, because if we don't do it, ain't nobody else trying to protect us. And so I hope that answers your question, Ms. Jackson. CK probably has a much better answer, but we know medical racism has affected so many black people in America.
What is the final thought you want to leave us with? I know everybody in the world wants to speak with you today. And CK, we are forever in your debt for bringing this great man before us, as you have in many times in the past. But what do you want us to know? What should we know?
What I would say, I would say this, y'all, just because people say that
we are crazy for taking on cases that others won't take on, that gives dignity and respect and honor to our people, then we got to do it. I was listening to CK at the panel, just take on things you believe in, because you got to say, God gave me this talent for a reason, and shame on me if I don't use it to bless others. And when I think about the heart and thought I want y'all to have, Miss Jackson, as because we fighting down there in our home state of Florida. We talk about this revisionist history on Black history with these crazy Republican governors. Henrietta Lacks needs to be told. Children can tell you who Henry Ford was. They tell you who Betsy Ross was, who made the American flag. They can tell you who George Washington was. But they also need to know the name of this Black woman, Henrietta Lacks, who was so special to this world. And we can't let them not know the story of her. And all our Black children need to know the story of Henrietta Lacks, but white children need to know it too, because the reality is this. She is the mother of modern medicine. In the last 70 years, every single medical advancement, every in vitro fertilization, the mapping of the human cell, the battle with COVID was her cells, the battle with HIV, her cells, all this stuff, polio, they used it with her cells. So if you've had a vaccine, a shot, or benefited in any way from modern medical research and science, then it is arguable that you have a little Henrietta inside of your body too. Wow. So that's why we need to celebrate this Black woman.
And we need to celebrate you for being crazy enough to lead the fight. No, I mean, all these great ideas, Attorney Crump, people thought Reverend was crazy. You a Black man running for president. I mean, are you serious right now? Or are you serious about getting justice, economic justice? Are you serious right now? Are you serious about getting the vote, Dr. King? Are you serious right now? Are you serious about being free, Harriet Tubman? Are you serious right now? I put you in that tradition. We all do. And we are forever in your debt. Forever in your debt. Thank you so much. Thank you for all that you've done and all that you're continuing to do. Is there any way that we can support you, Attorney Crump?
I'm trying to get CK and any lawyer to come down to the law school at some point and help educate the next generation. Like, my frat brother, Reverend Jackson, he always would look out for me, and we have to look out for other young, brilliant minds who are going to be the next generation of civil rights freedom fighters. And I don't take it lightly. CK and Willie Gary and so many Black lawyers looked out for me and my law partner, Darryl Parks, when we were baby lawyers. And the reason we are today is because what they poured into us. And I know you understand it, Ms. Johnson, the stuff my father did, and making millionaires, probably more Black millionaires than anybody else in America. And that's what we do. We can help get the next generation. And so if anybody want to help Ben Crump, let's have this Ben Crump Law School so we can make the future C.K. Hofflers, we can make the future Fred Grays and Johnny Cochrans and Thurgood Marshalls. That's what we can do.
Well, I will share these wonderful lawyers that I have online with on the air with us today. I will get their information to Attorney C.K. Hoffler, because each of them are brilliant in their own right in the civil rights space. Attorney Patillo in the civil liberties and civil rights space. Attorney Mark Fancher, and of course in all of these spaces and more, particularly in terms of immigration. Attorney Anastasi Sanat. These are all champions, and we're so grateful that that they are with us, and we thank God for you and your leadership.
Thank you. I love you all, and tell Reverend Jackson, I am so proud to see that he has ushered in the new
vision for Rainbow Push.
Amen. Well, you give him a call
Absolutely.
yourself. I'm going to tell him you threatened to call him today.
Okay. I thought I was going to see him at the NBA because he's like a lawyer. He comes to the NBA convention and comes to the breakfast with CK.
That's right.
Absolutely.
You know, CK's our girl. We love her. She's the chair of Rainbow Push, of course, and we love her, but we just thank God for you, Attorney Benjamin Crump, leading the fight. Hey, you know what? If you don't fight, you're going to lose. But if you try, you just might win. Amen to that.
Amen to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Well, Attorney Patillo, and then you, Dwight McKee, you can help to wrap things up for us. Attorney Patillo, your thoughts?
Well, I think it's crucial in that this opens the door for other cases of this nature. As Ben Crump was speaking, I was thinking about the precedents that this sets. Henrietta Lack was not alone in this level of experimentation. You can go all the way back to the 19th and 18th century, talking about. There's a book called The Delectable Negro that discusses medical experimentation on African Americans during enslavement, including that they took Nat Turner, and after they killed him for his revolt, they actually boiled him down and ended up consuming him and turning him into all sorts of trinkets and medical elixirs and those sorts of things. So I'm hoping this opens for more litigation of this nature.
Can you believe that? But they did do that to Nat Turner. I mean, and you know, but Attorney Patel, just very quickly, it's something we're loath to discuss. It's so horrific, but we have to. And I'm not going to wait for the public school system to do it. We have to do it.
Exactly. I think that America, till this day, is yet to reckon with the full nature of American slavery. The fact that right now in 2023, Republicans are having an argument about the benefits of slavery and whether or not they learned how to be blacksmiths, but they don't want to talk about the Negroes that they ate. They literally killed black people, boiled them down, and ate them. But you want to argue about whether or not becoming a blacksmith was a benefit of slavery. This is the idiocracy of America that we have to fight against
every single day. Dwight McKee.
Well, that's why I was using the word vampire. It's these people have been vampires, and they fed on us, and they sucked our blood, and they've consumed all our nutrition for themselves, and then celebrate the fact that that they've been vociferous with our nutrition, and then pride themselves as being some kind of special, unique, peculiar people. They are. They're Dracula. They are unique people. They're Dracula. And they have no shame having been that. When you look at the implications of Miss Lack's life and the things that have come just out of the benefit of her blood cells, everything from curing these diseases to saving these lives to the pharmaceutical industry and the kind of money they made for people, the pension funds that have come from that, and then all the industries that have come from the pension funds, whether it's the tech industries or whether it's the military industrial complex, it's whether it is the educational facilities who have a lot of their money invested in the pension funds that come out of the medical industry. I mean, she has been a one-person economy for the Western world.
For the Western world.
And never compensated for it. And so it is really the first step to reparations, but it really pales in comparison to the amount of benefits they have based off the prerogatives of sucking our blood and the anemia they've left us in all over the world.
You know, when this becomes an elixir, CK, I've got the last minute. It belongs to you. Legal Q&A with CK. Whew.
Well, Santita, first of all, thank you for always providing a forum where we can discuss these things openly. But the word of the day for me is crazy. Why do I say that? Because as purveyors of justice, as people who fight every day, you have to be just a little bit crazy if you want to seek justice. And the other side has to believe that you're crazy enough and well-funded enough to fight. And so all accolades and praise go to Ben Crump, to Attorney Ben Crump and his team. And he was knee-deep. He is knee-deep in these cases. He's absolutely brilliant. But that little crazy that I talk about is what fueled Fred Gray, what fueled Johnny Cox, what fueled Willie Gary, which fuels me, and what also fuels Ben Crump. So the word of the day is crazy. Crazy enough to seek justice and dare.
Amen. You better be crazy, because if you adjust to injustice, you are crazy. The crazy people are the ones who decide to break the yoke of slavery. The crazy are the ones who decide to break the yoke of classism. The crazy are the ones who decide red, yellow, black, brown, and white, we're all precious in God's sight. If you're red, if you're yellow, if you're black, if you're white, if you decide to fight for justice, people are going to call you crazy. But that's all right. That's all right. Be a little crazy. Be a lot crazy. Justice is ours. We just have to fight for it. Believe in it, everybody. Justice is but a fight away. Get in the fight. I want to see you at the Senior Resource Fair that Congressman Jonathan Jackson is going to have at 119th and Elizabeth 10 to 2 on Friday. But please join us at Rainbow Push. Be a little crazy. Be part of the movement. 773 Freedom throughout the weekend. RainbowPush.org. Be a part of it, everybody. And join an organization. Get involved. I love you, everybody. Going to get some closing thoughts on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel from this magnificent panel. Wow. Thank you, Ben Crump. Thank you, CK, for making it happen. I love you, everybody. Thank you for a great show. Henry, God bless you, everybody. Mark Fancher, what do you think about what you heard today? Is Mark still there? Well, Attorney Sanat, are you still there?
Oh, yes. I'm so excited right now. I don't even know. I was just C.K. Hoffler, getting Ben Crump, being able to hear from the man himself.
Mm-hmm.
I am so impressed with the work that private attorneys have been able to do in order to seek justice. It's limiting when I myself am just a civil rights activist in my volunteer time, but to be able to share a space with the man who does the justice for us on the outside, it was just amazing. And I do agree that some of these cases, they're so old. I mean, I don't know if the enslaved women from J. Marion Sims were able to have a legacy, but if someone was able to stand up for them and to fight for them and to really get credit for all the gynecology work that has been done for them, that would be great. So I'm blessed, and I hope that if I ever go into the private side, I can be crazy too.
You can be, but that's why I want, CK, that's why it's important for Attorney Crump and you to know Attorney Mark Fancher, who's a brilliant civil libertarian. He comes here from the National Conference of Black Lawyers, but he is the head of the Racial Justice Project for the ACLU in Michigan. You've got Attorney Anastasia Sanat. Whenever I think of immigration, for any immigration issue, we've got her. We have got Attorney Robert Patillo, brilliant. We've got some brilliant people. And if you want someone to give you context, no one's more brilliant than Dwight McKee, because we need that. We need to understand how we got from there to here,
Santita, all of these morning stars are crazy. That's why that's the word of the day. We are all crazy in our own way. There is no greater visionary than Daddy D. He's crazy.
Thank you. Would you please tell him he's not? He tries to act like he's not crazy.
I did like how he started out.
She's real quiet right now. Like, oh, you're talking about me? Yeah, you. Oh, nuts. This is crazy.
And I mean that most affectionately, because you cannot. We learned this, that you cannot be committed to change and making a difference.
You're right.
It is also to your own personal detriment, by the way. How about that discussion? Because when you do take on these fights, It's not as if the doors were open. Everyone said, "Oh, come right in. Yes, we appreciate you, and we're going to pay you billions of dollars, or we're going to recognize that we were wrong." That's not how it works. That's not how it ever works. So you have to be crazy to fight these fights. Your father, Santita, he understood that. He understands that. So everybody, all your morning stars, including and especially you, Santita, we all have that element of crazy. And that's why I said crazy is the word for the day.
Well, just praise the Lord. Dwight, you have something on your mind?
Yeah, thank you, CK, for bringing in Brother Crump today. It's very, very amazing how much this exploitation has been and what levels it's been. Everything from our intellectual property in music to to everything from our legacy and them stealing our legacy and assuming it to be their own. From them taking all of our ideas, taking all our labor, taking as much land as they could from us, building the economy around it, and putting us on the bottom of that economy, and then somehow making themselves, justifying it by calling themselves superior or manifest destiny, or it's God's will to be in charge, or they've been racially superior. No, they haven't been superior. They've just been cold-blooded and exploitive in ways that is inhumane and almost defy imagination. And so to see a victory like this is almost overwhelming. I could only imagine what the settlement could have been. And for Ben to say that now he's going to sue the rest of these pharmaceutical companies who live off prerogatives of this one woman and her blood, it's really, when you think about it, really an act of God. Only God could create a woman, just very simple, basic woman whose cells and DNA is so profound that it defies death itself. You know, it's almost like Jesus being remanifested in the spirit of this woman, in the body of this woman, whose blood gave us eternal life. Her blood gave us life on the planet. And it's so symbolic as to the providence of God that he would take a simple woman like this and have such a profound impact on humanity.
Well, you know what? You know what it also reminds me of, as you think of God, Dwight and Attorney Santita and CK and Robert. The Medgar Evers family fought. And can you imagine they lived for a while in the same town as the man who they knew killed their husband, their father. Everyone in town knew that Byron Dale Beckwith murdered Medgar Evers, and they had to live with that. And Mrs. Evers moved to California, kind of got the kids out of that for a while. But they never, ever stopped fighting for justice for their husband, for her husband, for their father. And you remember Dwight and Robert and CK and Anastasia when they disinterred Medgar Evers' body. His son, who carried his father's name, he's passed on since. He was determined to be in the room. And so and people said, "Are you sure?" He said, No, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be with my father. I'm going to walk with him the last mile of the way, because this is the key to convicting this man who we know killed our daddy, killed my mama's husband. And don't you know, when they opened the casket, it says, if he had been buried, he had been embalmed the day before, there was no decomposition. He was completely intact. I mean, the whole room people were they said, we can't believe it. Because by this time, it'd been more than 40 years. They said, oh my God, look at this. Look at this. And the son just said, wow, Daddy, thank you. And they were able to completely check his body. Yeah, but your closing thoughts, CK.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No.
My closing thoughts, just crazy. Just crazy. I think I've said everything that I need to say, and I salute crazy and thank you all for being crazy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those are my closing thoughts.
I don't know whether to thank you or not, CK. I don't know how to take that one.
You take it because you know everybody
No,
knows.
and I have to tell you, you should because let me tell you, because I salute you. That for me is a constant compliment because I salute you.
Lord.
So as from one crazy person to another, we're all in good company and we just keep it moving. As we elevate and celebrate and fight.
Then I guess I can say you're welcome.
Oh my Lord. Just crazy people.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Anytime there's any breaking news on this, I will do everything to get Ben. This is a case like no other case.
Oh boy.
This is the ramifications of this are so far reaching. So I'd like to make sure that we here on the Santita Jackson Show, especially in the legal segment, that we highlight these types of matters, because I want to make sure that we are appropriately educating our audiences, since education of Black history is being crushed, or people are trying to crush that. I want to make sure that we're able to properly educate people on the significance of these cases.
Well, thank you for that, because having him is a big deal. It really, really is. And I just thank you. I knew you could work it out.
It reminds me of a song we sing in church, you all.
Thank you. Love you, hon.
Okay, CK. It reminds me of a song we should sing in church, you all. Is that the blood that gives us strength will never lose its power.
Boy, oh boy.
That's who this Black is, man.
From day to day, it will never lose its power. It reaches to the highest mountains. It flows to the lowest valleys. Oh, the blood that gives us strength from day to day. It will never lose its power. It soothes all our doubts and it calms all our fears. Oh, and it dries every tear. Oh, that blood that gives us strength from day to day. It will never lose its power. And the blood is the only substance that never degrades. That's how you know something happened to somebody there, because the blood, no matter how much you wash it, the floor can look clean, the wall can look clean, but the blood is still there. And if they bring out the special substances, they're going to see the blood. Oh, Lord, they're going to see the blood.
I want to thank you, actually, Sora Jackson, for even thinking of me to come on today. I am just so impressed with the panel today and with the Morning Stars and being able to participate, because I do believe that what C.K. Hoffler says is, even though we're not necessarily all fighting the same fight, the fact that we are willing to fight kind of makes us touched, a little crazy.
Well, no, I think we are fighting the same fight, but in different spaces, right? And the thing is, given your brilliance, I want CK to know you. I want, as I mentioned, CK, and I want to, as long as I have breath, I'm going to put you in it. I'm going to put Mark Fancher in it. I'm going to put Robert Patillo in it. I'm going to put Dwight McKee in it. We have God has not sent anybody onto this earth short of anything. You by yourself and we within our community have everything that we need. We just keep looking to other communities thinking that we need them to do what we need to do. No, we're needy for them, and needy is greedy. And that's one of the 7 deadly sins. You got to let that go. God has given us everything that we need to fight this fight and to win. I don't need to wait on anybody.
Be the descendant of such greatness.
Yes.
It makes me feel so good to be the descendant of such greatness.
Well, you are.
When yes, we all are. But that's the discussion of the day. How are we descendants of such greatness that even though we weren't there when it happened, we are here. The bloodline has continued such that we can fight for it today. I just think it's great.
Amen.
I think it's great.
And that's why we have to keep on fighting. We got to keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the King's Highway. We got to keep the fight up. And we have to keep people inspired to fight. And you have to give them information. That's why I could have talked about the Trump indictments today and given people that kind of space. No, the Trump fight, and you got a black judge he has a history with her, and she's going to be tough and all that. I got it, and I think that is great, wonderful. That is a story they're going to be talking about for another year. We've been waiting on this justice for 70 years. 70.
Yes. Yeah. And for Brother Crump to bring up the fact that it was on her birthday.
Come on,
that
girl.
is just it's so wonderful. August 1st.
Come on. And they just kept on trying to make it to the 31st of July. No, God said, no, you just hold on, wait a minute. You better wait on the Lord. You better wait on the Lord. Wait on him. God's going to come through. Wait on that. Wait on God. Come on now. And that's going to give some thoughts to some people who were in the black section of Johns Hopkins, Dwight and Anastasi and Robert. These other black folks who were there, all black folks who've been in these segregated sections, start thinking and stop thinking of yourself as a debtor. You're a creditor. The West is your debtor. And that is something I learned from my father a long time ago. He said, you got to change your thinking. I'm sorry, Robert.
Yeah, Santita, while y'all were talking, I was kind of laughing in the background because I actually live across the street from Johns Hopkins. Our house in Baltimore is literally across the street from Johns Hopkins Bayview over in Canton, like right where they developed one of the vaccines is around the corner from our house. I walk my dog on Johns Hopkins campus, so I'm about to look out for them body snatchers and maybe go to the Wire neighborhood where it's safer at because y'all got me talking about the body snatchers now.
Look, you better. Let me tell you something. On 9/11, everybody loved to be on the south side and the west side. Nobody wanted to be living downtown on that day. Negroes were running. They were like, oh, yeah. No, you better watch it. And look, you better stop trusting all these people who have had such nefarious thoughts toward us. That's why we have to get our own hospitals. We have enough money in our community to have our own hospitals, to indemnify our own schools. We can do all this. And then where your tax monies go, you need to demand that the government, whoever is in charge, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, that they give you your due. Stop having this dating dance with a party. Let that go. Politics is about cutting a deal. Cut a deal and get what you need and keep it moving. Stop falling in love with these parties. Stop falling in love with these candidates. You better be in love with this. First, you need to be in love with God. You need to be in love with yourself and take care of yourself. Stop being needy and greedy for somebody else. That's one of the 7 deadly sins. Needy is greedy. You're emotionally greedy. You already have enough. You are enough. Be enough and go get what it is that you need. And I'm glad that family just stayed with it and said, no, y'all ain't gonna do this because I miss growing up with my mama. Only heaven knows what treatment she was denied, Anastasi, Dwight, Robert, while they were experimenting on her. Only heaven knows what happened. Think about it. And then she was locked into the inward section of the hospital. Okay. Well, now they got to pay. And I said at the top of the show, Dwight, this was the position Michael Jackson was in. That's why I tell you, all these prosecutions and all these indictments are always political in nature. These folks would deliver their children to Michael so they could travel around the world. Who does that? Okay. All right. But you know what? Do you know what happened when those first charges came out? Dwight was in the middle of renegotiating his contract with Sony. It was found that he had sold so many records, so many Thriller records, that the company was actually due him. He could have owned Sony. That's why they wanted Michael out of here. Because Michael technically was owed so much money. He was owed more money than the company was worth. And Michael kept on fighting to be free. 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 God rest his soul. Soon as he got a piece of those little catalogs, he reached out to little Richard. He said, I'm going to give you your money. They wouldn't let him do it. You better get clear on the game, everybody. Get clear on the game. Get clear on the game. And don't get played. Know what all this stuff is about. So when Dwight and Robert tell you, there's a little bit more to this Trump thing than you think, don't get over it, y'all. Really. Got to get over it. Because there's much more to all this stuff than we know. And so much of this fight is not even about us, Anastasia, and Robert and Dwight. These folks are having another fight. Well, we need our businesses saved. We need our banks back. We need our black colleges saved. They can go on and fight amongst themselves. Just give me my money so I can get my stuff and I can keep on going. And when the fight is over, I'll come up for air. Whenever you hear white people talking about racism, and these people are racist and woke, you know that they are not thinking about you. Because that is not something that they care about casually. So stop responding to that and stop being needy for someone to accept you. Stop being needy for someone to think more of you than you think of yourself. Get over it. Get over it. And let's get what we need. And I think everybody else who was shoved into the black section of Johns Hopkins or the UFC or any other hospital, y'all need to find out what happened to your loved ones. You need to snatch those records. While you sitting up here going bankrupt on health care. You kidding me? You need to find out what's up. Huh? What, Dwight? I think I'm saying something. Huh?
Yeah.
I said, wait a minute. No. That's a teaching hospital. That's a teaching hospital, which is what Dr. Knighton was talking about at the top of the show. She said, when you're in a teaching hospital, the rules are different. We need to know that. I'm going to have her back on to talk about that. When you're signing papers in the hospital, when you're in so much pain and you need to have the surgery, you need to know what you're signing. Are you signing away your DNA or your body parts to a pharmaceutical company that you're going to pay taxes to develop a vaccine for that you're going to end up having to pay for? Oh, please. Pfizer better get out of my face. Moderna and everybody else. After I pay you to come up with this thing, then I got to pay you again? No. Y'all keep on going. Keep on going with that. And you need to, and you need to find out what's in your body. All these people dropping dead all over the place. You need to find out what's going on here. You need to find out what's happening. 18-year-olds just having having cardiac arrest on court. Ronnie James was the second basketball player, second Trojan that happened to this year. Why? Is your screening process not strong enough? Then we need to find out. All of my brothers got through school on football scholarships. It would have killed me if I'd seen them have cardiac arrest on the football fields. I wouldn't have been able to handle it. And my question would have been to the school, did you test them? Because I know y'all because these are money-making machines for y'all, all these athletes. So what kind of did you mean to tell me your test didn't catch that my son had a heart issue? What's going on? And I'm not allowed to ask you without sounding like a conspiracist. All these people can go straight to hell. And that's what you need to tell them. This is your body. God gave it to you, and you need to be the guardian, the centurion of your body. And don't let anyone play with you about it. And I mean it. And I'll add more to it before I take anything away. Anyone else have anything they'd like to say? Hello, Dwight, Anastasia, Robert. Okay, honey, I'll be out here all by myself.
The only thing I would add is that this is one of those places, just kind of circling this back to politics, where I wish that our conservative friends, the same ones who are very anti-vaccine, anti-government, saying don't trust anybody. This is the time where they could take this Henrietta Lack issue and instead of having Hunter Biden hearings, have hearings on Henrietta Lack, and then connect that to the vaccine and those, et cetera, and pass some actual legislation that can be done in a bipartisan manner to help the families that have been victims of this type of thing. Now, they won't do that because they hate black people. But I'm just saying that will be a good idea right now.
Well, you know, I think you need to have all the hearings. Don't stop them. Have them all. I want to know if, because you've been doing business over in Ukraine, if that's why we're at war. I want to know that too. Have all of them. But stop playing games. Stop politicizing everything. Some things are right. Some things are wrong. There is something called right and wrong. The Bible tells you that the way is straight and narrow. Ain't no gray. This is what my grandmother kept saying to me while she was about to get out of here. There is one way. It's the right way. Stop playing. And you only care about the weaponization of government when it happens to you. Really? That's where the Republicans lose credibility with me. I'm like, y'all get out of here. J. Edgar Hoover tried to get Dr. King to kill himself. The IRS had Dr. King under audit for the 13 years of his public life. This ain't new. I didn't like it then and I don't like it now. I don't have to like or dislike Trump. It's the principle that I take, with which I take umbrage. Stop playing with me. And you need to demand that people stop playing with you. I don't care what the color is. I don't care what the party is. I don't care. I just want right. That's all. My grandmamas, before they got out of here, they told me that's what you need to look for. Be a good person. Do right. Follow that. Read that Bible. My grandmama Helen used to tell me that all the time. Baby, read that Bible. Read that Bible. All the answers are right there. Read that Bible. Read it. Read it. Follow it. Just y'all stop playing. If we keep playing like this, we're going to lose America. And that would be a shame. So, you know, look, find out, all the corruption rooted out, and let's just get rid of it. Come on. Let's just stop it. I'm tired. Robert, I'm so tired of it. I'm tired of it all. Tired of these people playing this game playing these games with everybody. As if when you get to Washington, and you are there, Robert, as if these people are not all sleeping under the same quilt. If you don't believe it, think of the first Clinton campaign. The person who ran the Clinton campaign was about to be engaged to the person who ran the Bush campaign. Come on, y'all. Robert Strauss has been was the chair of the Democratic and Republican Party. These people ain't thinking about that. They're thinking about holding on to power and having us fight each other so they can hold on to the power. Come on. Anyone else have anything they want to say? Anyone? Okay. Anastasia, you know you are more than welcome to be part. You are part of this family here, and you can be here at any time, whenever you don't have to go to court or something. You know, you got it. Okay. I love you all. I'm out of here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to get some of these clips over to the station so they can use this in Minneapolis and here in Chicago. So I love you all. I love you, love you, love you. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. Have a great one, everybody. It was a great show. Thank you, CK, for bringing Attorney Ben Crump on. Mr. Omega Sci-Fi, Tuesday. Love you. Love y'all. Bye-bye. Thank you, Dwight.